Good afternoon on this bright and sunny day. It's Mrs. Young here again, and today's story is going to be Mog the Forgetful Cat, written by Judith Kerr. And there's Mog with all her family. Mrs. Thomas, Mr. Thomas, Nicky and Debbie. Once there was a cat called Mog, and she lived with a family called Thomas. Mog was nice, but not very clever. She didn't understand a lot of things, and a lot of other things she forgot. She was a very forgetful cat. Sometimes she ate her supper, and then forgot that she'd eaten it. Sometimes she thought of something in the middle of washing her leg, and then she forgot to wash the rest of it. Once she even forgot that cats can't fly. Oh, poor Mog. Hope she was all right when she landed. But most of all, she forgot her cat flap. The cat flap that led from the kitchen into the garden, so Mog could go out and come back in again. It was her own little door. There she is. She used to go out into the garden. The garden always made Mog very excited. She smelled all the smells. She chased the birds. She climbed the trees. She ran round and round with a big fluffed up tail. And then she forgot the cat flap. She forgot that she had a cat flap. She wanted to go back into the house, but she couldn't remember how. In the end, she sat outside the kitchen window and meowed until someone let her in with a great big meow. Afterwards, you could always tell where she'd sat. This made Mr. Thomas very sad. Look at those broken flowers, oh dear. He said, "Bother that cat." But Debbie said, "Oh, but she's nice." Once Mog had a very bad day. Even the start of the day was bad. Mog was still asleep, and then Nicky picked her up. He hugged her and said, "Nice kitty." Mog said nothing, but she wasn't happy. Doesn't look very happy, does she? It's not good being woken up very quickly like that, is it, in the morning? Then it was breakfast time. Mog forgot that cats have milk for breakfast. She forgot that cats only have eggs as a treat. And she ate an egg for her breakfast. Oh dear, look, she's eating Nicky's egg. Mrs. Thomas said, "Bother that cat." Debbie said, "Well, Nicky doesn't like eggs anyway." Mog looked through her cat flap. It was raining in the garden. Mog thought, perhaps the sun is shining in the street. And when the milkman came, she ran out. The milkman shut the door. The sun was not shining in the street after all. It was raining, and a big dog came down the street. Mog ran. The dog ran too. Mog ran right round the house, and the dog ran after her. She climbed over the fence. She ran through the garden and jumped outside the kitchen window. She meowed a big meow very suddenly and very loud. Meow! Oh dear, Mrs. Thomas said, "Bother that cat." Look, all the peas are on the floor. Made Mrs. Thomas jump, didn't she? Debbie said, "Oh, it wasn't her fault." Mog was very sleepy. She found a nice warm soft place and went to sleep. She had a lovely dream. She dreamed that she had wings. Look what she's sleeping on. Oh, I don't think that's going to be very good, is it? In her dreams, she could fly everywhere. She could fly faster than the birds, even quite big birds. Suddenly, she woke up. Oh dear. Mrs. Thomas said, "Bother that cat." Debbie said, "I think you look nicer without a hat." Debbie gave Mog her supper, and Mog ate it all up. Then Debbie and Nicky went to bed. Mog had a rest too. Oh, look, she's on top of the television. But Mr. Thomas wanted to see the fight, and Mog's tail was right in the middle. Mr. Thomas said, "Bother that cat." There was no Debbie there to stick up for her, was there? Mog thought, nobody likes me. And then she thought, oh, Debbie likes me. Debbie's door was open. Debbie's bed was warm. And Debbie's hair was soft like kitten fur. Mog forgot that Debbie wasn't a kitten. She's jumped up on the bed, look, and she's licking Debbie's hair. Debbie had a dream. It was a bad dream. A dream about a tiger. A tiger wanted to eat Debbie, and it was licking her hair. Debbie shouted. Mog jumped. Mr. and Mrs. Thomas said, "Bother, bother, bother that cat." Debbie said nothing. She was still crying because of her bad dream. Mog ran out of the room and right through the house and out of her cat flap. She was very sad. She looks sad, doesn't she? The garden was dark. The house was dark too. Mog sat in the dark and thought dark thoughts. She thought, nobody likes me and they've all gone to bed. There's no one to let me in. And they haven't even given me my supper. I think she'd had her supper, hadn't she? But she'd forgotten. Ooh. What's that? Mog noticed something in the house. The house was not quite dark. There was a little light moving about. She looked through the window and saw a man in the kitchen. Mog thought, oh, perhaps that man will let me in. Perhaps he'll give me some supper. Dearie me, I think it's a burglar, isn't it? Mog doesn't know that. Guess what she did? Yes, she meowed her very biggest meow very suddenly and very, very loud. Meow! The man was so surprised he dropped his bag. It made a big noise and everyone in the house woke up. Mr. Thomas ran down to the kitchen and shouted, "A burglar!" The burglar said, "Bother that cat." Mrs. Thomas telephoned the police. Debbie let Mog in and Nick hugged her. A policeman came and they told him what had happened. The policeman looked at Mog. He said, "What a remarkable cat." "I've seen watchdogs, but never a watch cat. She will have to have a medal." Debbie said, "I think she'd rather have an egg." Mog got a medal. She also had an egg every day for breakfast. Mr. and Mrs. Thomas told all their friends about her. They said, "Mog is really remarkable." And they never, or almost never, said, "Bother that cat," ever again. Oh, look, there's Mog with her medal saying, "To Mog for bravery." And all she was doing was trying to get in the house, wasn't she? Oh, never mind. At least she's happy now, isn't she? And everybody else is too. Well, there you go. That's another of my very favourite stories. I'd forgotten until I started doing these stories every day how many favourite stories I actually have. So we'll carry on again tomorrow and I'll see you. Have a lovely day. Enjoy the rest of the sunshine. Bye.